Oh, thank you. Good evening. Welcome again to our 85th anniversary. A couple of announcements, and then we'll move into the program. One is some of you have bought raffle tickets. Don't know that everybody had the opportunity to do that, but we will be selling tickets through the balance of the evening. And let's do it. Ben, where are you, Ben? There, okay.
I got my cue.
It's very good. He'll be selling tickets through the end of the evening when we will draw the 50-50, and the beneficiary of the raffle will be the Wounded Warriors Project in Philmont. Wonderful program there. In addition to that, let's see, probably. We'll go from there. We have if there is a cake someplace in the room, could we get that? Sergio has it. All right. 85 candles. No, we have actually 3 members of our club have birthdays today. 2 of them are here. Jack Howard is not. Will the one who just said wow stand up? There he is. And Charlie Bowden. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Charlie, Ernie, and Jack. Happy birthday to you. As Phil said, thank you for inviting us.
Ready? That's our wish. Hey, Charlie, do one at a time. One at a time? Oh, one at a time. No exceptions.
Very, very nice. We won't ask that. Okay. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tom Horn, who will be our Master of Ceremonies for what will be a wonderful evening. Looking forward to it.
I need to get myself organized up here first. Many notes for tonight, such a wonderful outgoing of encouragement of the club for its 85th anniversary program. First, I want to recognize all those people who are here for our Charter Day ceremony. Before I do that, this is a very special week for all of us. I don't know where you were on 9/11, but I certainly remember where I was. And I'd like for us to just observe a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on that day in our history, and may they never be forgotten. Amen. So, we have a number of guests here tonight, and if I miss you, my apologies. And you are welcome to get up and say, "You missed me," and say who you are, if I don't know you already. But it's difficult for me to see, given the vagaries of old age, people in the very back of the room. Let's see, we have Brett Anderson with us. Brett? There he is, way back there. Former club member, airline pilot, George Atwell, and Marianne Atwell. George, a former district governor and member of the Leesburg Town Council. Welcome back. Patty and Steve Bishop, who are now with the Daybreak Club, who are great members of this club for a number of years. I have Janice Bowden, Charlie's wife, who is right there. I have Marilyn Cumby, who's Andy's wife, who's right over here. Ellie Daly, who is Phil's wife, who is back over there. We have back with us Beck Dickerson, and Beck is a former member of this club. He was here last week, and it was such a good thing to see him last week. He's a well-known architect, and those of you who remember the old county office building that lay on the courthouse grounds, Beck's architectural firm was responsible for that design of that building and did a lot of work around town, and many of the buildings that you see are as a result of his work with Campster and Dickerson. Beck, it's nice to have you and your wife back. Priscilla Godfrey is with us tonight. Priscilla, welcome. Former member of the school board and former president of the Percival Club. Let's see, Keith Grayson. Welcome, Keith. Who's Katie Mann's wife? My wife, Tricia, who's right down here. Sherry Chrissa, Steve's wife, is here tonight. Michelle Martinson, my treasurer when I was president of this club. Michelle, her secretary, she wasn't my treasurer, she was my secretary, she's my right hand. And Michelle, a little bird told me that you have a big event coming up this weekend in your life. Next weekend.
8 days.
Well, congratulations. Can you tell us what that is?
I'm going to change my name to Sue Chair next Saturday.
Well, congratulations. Barbara Nunley, Warren's wife, is right over here. Jim and McLean Pumphrey. Jim was a former president of this club. He's back over here. Great friend and a friend of this club. Barbara Rochelle, who is right down here, Phil's wife. Tech Russell, who's Wiley's wife, is back over there. Carol Story and Rich Story, who's our assistant district governor with David.
Thank you, and if I could just add one other thing. George has, and this is something many people don't know about, but we have a zone meeting, and you go from districts to zones. Zones is a big area. And George has won an award that only 5 people have won in the history of Rotary. Each year, okay. And George, if you could mention what that
George, tell us about it. You can come up here if you want.
No, I think I can say a very few words from here. And thank you, Rich, for such an introduction. As many of you know, I have been an advocate of polio eradication since Rotary began that marquee event in 1985. I've had the pleasure and the opportunity and the ability to go to 3 different countries for eradication, India, Egypt, and Nigeria. And it has been something that I have promoted and advocated all of these years. And the trustees of the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International has an award that they give to no more than 10 each year in the Rotary world. It's called the International Service Award for Polio-Free World. Now, I'm sure out of 1,200,000 Rotarians, there are many more out there who deserve this than I, but I've been significantly honored. And I might say while I've got the floor, Joe.
Yes, sir. You want the gavel
Give the
too?
district
or-
governor, give the district governor or past district governor a microphone. They can't say hello in 5 minutes. But I can certainly appreciate Mike inviting me tonight, because this is my home club. I was invited by this club in 1967 to become a member. I've been a member of Rotary ever since. T. Benton Smith was my sponsor, if some of you may happen to remember him, along with O.B. Knight, and Stanley Calkins came to my school when I was a high school principal in Purcellville, and said, we would like to start an Interact Club in your school. And if we do, oh, by the way, we may invite you to join Rotary. That's the end of my story. And thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for being here. Kate Williams, Fred's wife, is here. And Deborah Townsend. Now, Deborah, I understand that as executive director of the pre-clinic, there is a fundraiser that is coming up, and you'd like to perhaps tell us about that. And Ernie would also like to say that he has 3 tickets that he would like to sell to somebody with respect to that fundraiser. So could you tell us about that?
Thank you so much. I've been blessed to serve as the executive director of this beautiful care ministry. Dee Jonas has sponsored me to be here. Thank you, Dee. She's also been a volunteer physician for us. We are led by 200 volunteer physicians. We care for everyone who falls through the cracks. When no one else will care for these patients, we care for them. And we're having our biggest fundraiser a week from Saturday at the National Conference Center. It's going to be truly a celebration, and it's just an honor, first and foremost, to be welcomed to this club. So thank you so much. And to serve in this area, in this role, is truly an honor for me. So we would welcome you to that event. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, and thank you for all that you do. And Ernie, you do have 3 tickets.
I do. I have 3 tickets.
So if you are interested, Mr. Carnevale would be
Make you a
interested
deal.
in talking to you.
I'll make you a deal.
Make a deal. Is there anyone that I've missed? Pardon? Oh, Jim. Right here. Jim, welcome. I saw Jim over at Costco the other day. It's nice to have you back. Who else did I miss? Good. Well, this is Charter Night. And I have been delegated the task of being your master of ceremonies tonight, which is really an introducer for various people who are going to give you short 3-minute presentations regarding various aspects of Rotary. But before they do that, I need to lay a predicate for what we're doing tonight. We are celebrating the chartering of our club. Our club website, if you go to it, proudly proclaims that the chartering of the Leesburg, Virginia Rotary Club occurred on May 24th, 1927, as club number 2601. The charter presentation by the district governor and president of the Warrenton Club, which was our sponsoring club, was at the first meeting in July of 1927. And I will tell you that on May 24th, 1927, to put everything in perspective, was a Tuesday. That Sunday, preceding the chartering of this club, word reached this country that one Charles Lindbergh had landed after flying 55.5 hours solo to Europe. The chartering club, Warrenton, was represented by Mr. J. Donald Richards. Those of you who don't know who J. Donald Richards was, I have very little knowledge of John Donald Richards, other than he was not only the special representative of Rotary, but he was in fact an attorney. So for all of you who are attorneys, our sponsoring representative was indeed a practicing lawyer in Warrenton. But now the plot thickens, and I'm going to have to call on some of you to volunteer to find out the conundrum that we find ourselves in. If you visit the Warrenton website for Rotary, which I did, and there's a nice picture of the Warrenton Club, it will tell you that the Warrenton Club was club number 2420. You've got to keep in mind we're 2601, so we're after 2420. It was chartered on October the 25th, 1926. The first president of that club was J. Donald Richards, who was an attorney who came as the sponsor for this club. But then it goes on to say the sponsoring club for the Warrenton Club was the Leesburg Rotary Club. I am not kidding. The same conundrum meets us when we think about chartering a club that was chartered in May, that had its first meeting in July, that we celebrate in September. I will also tell you that the Leesburg Club followed club number 2600 in Washburn, Maine, Stanley, and was followed by Orleans, Nebraska, club number 2602. Charter night is a time likened to the fitful sleep afforded Scrooge on a Dickinsonian Christmas Eve, that we are summoned to reflect on our past, celebrate the present, and anticipate our future. The Leesburg Club would spawn other clubs, the Percival Club, chartered on June 19, 1984, and the Daybreak Club, chartered on June 30th, 1990, and the Angarsk Siberia Club, chartered in 2007. Of the many accomplishments of this club on an international scale, few exceed the expectations of those of chartering the Angarsk Club in Siberia. Angarsk is described by its Chamber of Commerce as being located on the Trans-Siberian Railway more than 3,000 miles from Moscow, and it is further described, interestingly enough, as the world's nuclear fuel center. Bob Noe went there, and Bob's not here tonight, is he, Bob? No, he's not here tonight. I was going to say, he does glow after he came into Angarsk.
That's right.
And he's sort of our own nuclear fuel rod, embarked on a mission to Angarsk to carry the spirit of Rotary to Siberia. And those of you who were members of the club at the time would know that he was inspired by visitors to this club from that little-known place in the Siberian outback, and encouraged by a never-ending visionary shaggy dog narrative by club members in anticipation of Bob's departure, and he becomes known as Babushka Bob, based on the photographs that we received back from Siberia. But like Mr. Richards before him, he carried to others the spirit of Rotary. So it is that we celebrate our birthday and fondly remember those that brought us into being. Without the founding of Rotary by Paul Harris, there would be no Warrenton Club. Without there having been a Warrenton Club, there would be no Leesburg Club, unless someone can figure out whether there was a Leesburg Club before a Warrenton Club, or as in the law we say there's renvoi, which means that you're sort of looking back and forth at each other. And without the Leesburg Club, there would be no Percival, Daybreak, or Angarsk clubs. Now I want to spend just one tiny moment to put all of this in historical perspective. The Warrenton Club is located on State Route 17. For many years, the Warrenton Club met at Ben and Jerry's Steakhouse, which is located on Route 17, between Warrenton and Old Tavern. And those of you who know where Old Tavern is across from Great Meadow Park, where they have the Gold Cup races. That's actually Old Tavern. Route 17 runs through the Crooked Run Valley. In the valley, you will encounter such places as Hicks Graveyard, Avoca, Mount Bleak, Grisbyville, and the Hollow. Now this is getting to sound like a Shaggy Dog story, and I know that, but I'm getting somewhere, and I'm going to try to get this to you as best I can. The Hollow was the home of one Thomas Marshall. It was built sometime around 1764 on the western base of none other than Naked Mountain. Thomas Marshall later built a place called Oak Hill, a short distance to the east in 1775. Oak Hill would become the home of Thomas's son, John. John, some of you are getting the idea, is a pretty famous guy. He would become the third Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And not only was he the third Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, he's probably the greatest jurist that this hemisphere has ever known and may ever know. A brilliant jurist. Therefore, I submit, we can boast that on this our birthday, we have two Marshalls inextricably intertwined with the history of the club. John, who lived where our founding club had its roots, if one of you can solve that problem, and George C. Marshall, one of the greatest statesmen of the modern era and a member of the club. Now, before I get into the humorous part of this evening, because I know that I have to add some humor to this, I am going to move ahead because we have a number of people who are going to be making presentations to you, and the first is going to be Ernie. But, pardon? Oh, he's not going to do the song?
Oh, later.
What song? The song. Okay, well then I'll save that until the end, and I'll move forward, take this and move it over here.
That's the humor.
Oh, wait. Ernie has a great song, and I hope all of you are familiar with it. It's in the tradition of his wonderful heritage, Italian heritage.
That's right.
And I have selected that for him to sing tonight. So, and it's not O Sole Mio either. But we'll get to that. The first person then is Ron. You're going to talk about club formation and founders. So I will turn the program over to you.
I won't touch the papers behind the podium. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to try and advance slides and talk at the same time, and I'm going to be very brief. My job tonight was to talk about the founders of the Rotary Club of Leesburg. Before I do that, I want to thank Dan Malone and Tom Horn, though. Dan Malone being a previous member, and during Tom's year as president, he tasked Dan with developing the Rotary history, which he did. And it really formed the foundation for a lot of the comments that are going to be flowing from this evening. So first of all, thank you, Tom, for that vision, and Dan, wherever you are, for actually putting it together. Well, my information is the Rotary Club of Leesburg was launched on April 15th, 1927. So, and it was sponsored by Warrenton, and 250 Rotarians and guests attended a banquet at the Leesburg High School to kick it off. And this was a picture up on the screen of the 23 founding members. The first president was E.L. McFarland. The vice president was David McDonald. The secretary was John Whitney, and the treasurer was J.S. Whitmore. Dan Malone's history says the first actual meeting was held April 27, 1927. Initially, meetings were held at lunchtime, but on August 22nd, 1934, the members voted to meet at 6:30 each Thursday evening. And so here we are, 78 years later, still meeting on Thursday evenings, as determined back in April. Back in 1963, again, according to Dan Malone, of the original members, hold the phone, of the original members, whoops.
That was one.
There's the charter. Of the original members, which is, the charter is over there, for those of you who want to get close to it and have a picture taken with it. There were still 9 in the club in 1963. Coleman Gore, Stilson Hall, Wilbur Hall, J. Terry Hurst, H.C. Littlejohn, Bruce McIntosh, Niels Nielsen, and Lloyd Slack were the members still there in 1963. Now, Niels Nielsen, one of the charter members, still had in 1963 100% attendance record himself.
Oh, wow.
The history goes on to say the prime interest of the Leesburg Rotary Club was the youth of the community, as many Rotary clubs at the time had latched onto that as a mission. The history says, however, as we sponsor an achievement program at the grade school and homecoming program for the local high school. This achievement program is based on the child that shows the most achievement in his class each year and carries with it a certificate plus a cash prize, one for each of the rooms in the grade school. The homecoming program consisted of a gala weekend affair with quite a bit of fanfare, including parades, halftime ceremonies, and a dance for the children afterwards. And part of the, as you all know, as Rotarians, part of the fun of being in Rotary is getting together as a group. And I have a couple pictures of Rotary groups. This is the Rotary Club of Leesburg. Last year or 2 years ago at Arlington Cemetery, when we did wreath laying down there along with our Interact Club. A number of years ago, this group got together again on the courthouse steps. Does anybody recall the year of that? It must be, yes, it must be 75. 75 years, 75th anniversary. They got together on the courthouse steps and had a picture taken. From time to time, Rotarians like to cut up a little bit, and I found a picture of Rotarians celebrating Dean Wooster's becoming a judge. And the group got into costume and had some fun. And then last but not least, I thought I should mention Ilhami Kunur. He's one of our Rotarians, categorized as an honorary Rotarian now. And he and Ann are out in Eagle Butte, South Dakota, having put together a school for Native American kids of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. They're in their 4th year. They have 40 students. I talked with Ilhami today, and he said to please be sure and say hello from he and Ann. So, Tom, that's my background on the founding of the club with a few photos and
Great job.
a crazy story of judges.
Great job. Thank you, Ron.
All right. The, one commentator has opined that civilization has many things backwards. He'd like things better if we had clothes that wrinkled and faces that didn't.
That's good.
Oh,
Stanley playing croquet.
We're all excited.
Stan, keep loud and beautiful clothing. I'd like for you to wear
Well.
long pants.
That's before he got his tan.
well, I think that Stanley, that's you, right?
That was really something.
Well, then I think we need to come up here and talk about the old hotel. And while Stanley's making his way up here, I would say that the first place that I had occasion to practice law was in a courtroom in the old hotel, which was in the lobby that had been converted, and the Board of Supervisors met in the dining room. And, I was sort of a latecomer to the hotel. Stanley will tell you all about early days in the hotel. Stanley? And you might tell them about croquet, too.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
I can't tell you everything about the old hotel, because he'll have me in before we're in jail, you know. Most of the founding fathers of this club I knew by name. If you put the picture up there and you don't want to go through it, but I could point them out and call them by name. This is, to the older folks, they recognize it. To the new folks, they say, what's that? And where one of the county court buildings is now is where the old hotel stood. And in this corner of the hotel was the Rotary Room. The hotel dedicated a whole room to this Rotary Club. And every member of the club had their picture on the wall. So everybody was known. And what they got to do with me, well, I was a 14-year-old, I guess, I don't remember, 14 years old. Got my first Social Security card in 1938. I was a bellhop in this old hotel. And I got paid $3 a week. They took out 3 cents for withholding tax or something like that. But my job was, in those days you had to buy your meal ticket, and between dinner and dessert, it was my job to collect the meal tickets. So I would go around and ticket. Always 1 or 2 guys that seemed to be a little late about picking them up, and I had to go make change so they could get their ticket. But the old hotel had this room called the Rotary Room. There are many fine old stories about that old hotel. In this bay window right here, November the 30th, 1941, I waited on the Japanese embassy. They were there a week before Pearl Harbor. That's just a little sidebar sort of thing, you know, and I can't talk like that because I get all busted up. Never mind. Where my store is now used to be the Flippo Brothers grocery store. And Tad and Roy Flippo. Now, Roy Flippo is Ellen Flippo Wall's father. And when his brother Tad died, he sold the grocery store that I used to bag groceries in on Saturday to get enough Saturday night money for movies, and he bought the Laurel Brigade Inn. And somewhere in the time events, and I don't know, in the early 50s, I guess, I started working on the streets of Leesburg January the 2nd of 1951, and in the county bought this building, and that was the Loudoun County office building and where the Board of Supervisors met and all of that. The heating system blew up. They didn't take care of it, and the building was abandoned and torn down. And that's where one of the court buildings is now, beside the Loudoun County Courthouse. But when they tore it down, we had to have a place, and we went to the Laurel Brigade, and that's when we started meeting in the Laurel Brigade. And we did the same old practice there. We've gotten away from it now, but you had to buy a ticket at the desk before you could go in to get dinner. But I don't know who took those tickets up. I didn't do it. Somebody did. But later, you know, we invited Ellen to be a Rotarian, and she is a fine Rotarian, has been for years. And bless her soul, we had a birthday party for her Sunday. If you were there, You know how delightful it was, and if you weren't, well, you missed it, but I'm sorry. But anyway, this is, we met there until, I don't know, when did we stop meeting there, Ernie?
I don't know.
What happened? Was it? You know, see, my history's not good. I don't remember why we left the Laurel Brigade, but there hasn't been.
Sold to lawyers.
All right.
Lawyers.
My time calendar's not very good, and someday when you want to know all the stories, we'll go talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Well, let's see.
Chris gave me this one. Thank you, Chris. I like it.
Many memories of the old hotel, and it's interesting that Beck's here because he designed the building that took the place of the old hotel. And you can still see in the back of the building the foundation of the old hotel. There's a stone wall. If you sneak back through security in the back, you see a wall back there. That's part of that original building. So there is a vestige of something back there. Well, Joe Kelly is going to... Joe Kelly, who has, who's that, Boone's Farm?
Of all the great pictures you got of me.
Well, it looks like Captain Jack. But Joe is going to talk to us about that picture. No, he's going to talk to us about 100% attendance. So, Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This was an anti-Bloomberg commercial I was doing. If you didn't agree with breast abuse, stay on the bottom. Hey, it's great to see Beckham back here, George Atwell. Beckham was also a past president of his club, and it's great to see him back. Beckham, you look okay, but Tina looks terrific. But it's great to see you. Being number 2 on the list, I was asked to talk about our historic record of 288 consecutive meetings. It wasn't easy. We had to give up a lot to make that happen.
Third from the right, is that you?
It was kind of funny.
Joe's third on the left.
It was kind of funny that Tom mentioned Charles Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic, in 55 hours. I recently went to Ireland, and it took about the same time. But Lindbergh didn't have to put up with the TSA crap. Fred and Kate, good luck. I hope you get a better trip than I did. The Leesburg Charter Night was in July of 1927. And again, it's been redundant, but as usual for Rotary, we repeat a lot of things, but for most of us, you hear it for the first time. However, on January the 13th of 1928, the quest for a record of perfect attendance was begun by the Leesburg Rotary. The club responded immediately with 100% attendance at the district conference in Norfolk, Virginia. It said some went by motor and some went by boat. Now, I don't know how the hell they got up Great Falls, but they got to Norfolk. But 100% showed up. In June of 1930, the Leesburg Rotary Club hired a private rail car and attended the Chicago World Conference. Again, 100%. On June the 22nd, 1932, Leesburg passed O'Fallon Rotary Club, who at that time had reached 282 but broke their chain of attendance. Leesburg went on for the next 6 meetings to 288. And the only reason that it stopped was a gentleman by the name of Terry Hurst. Many of you remember J.T. Hurst. Became very ill. He wanted to hold a Rotary meeting in his hospital room, but his doctors would not allow it because of the seriousness of his illness. He then offered his resignation, which was turned down. And the chain was broken at 288 meetings. Thankfully, Terry Hurst recovered. And the Leesburg Rotary Club went on to have an additional 125 consecutive 100% meetings. Now, that is an incredible record and will never be broken. Not in this day and time and what the things that you have to do, but it will never be broken. It will never even come close. If you calculate it out, that's 5.5 years of perfect attendance for 24 individuals. O'Fallon Rotary Club, who was second, had only 15 members. That was wonderful, but wasn't as big as what Leesburg Rotary Club. If you added 225, that's 414 meetings. It would be 8 years of perfect attendance. Now, I wondered about guys that don't miss Rotary for 8 years. It must be exciting. However, I was rescued today by Ron Rogas came and gave me a book that was published some 25 years ago by Stanley Calkins, and it was the history of the Leesburg Rotary Club and what was being accomplished. It should be required reading for every Rotarian. Because not only did they attend meetings religiously, but the work they did for their community was outstanding. And I just took a few excerpts out of it I'd like to share with you. And these are just a few. In 1927, the Rotary Club put up the first ever Christmas tree on the Loudon Courthouse. It was enjoyed by all, and the residents came out for the first time and sang Christmas carols, courtesy of the Rotary Club of 1927. Now fast forward, because just a lot of things happened, and I'm not going to belabor things. But in 1945, the club sent a resolution to Judge Alexandria urging that Route 7 be 4-lane from Leesburg to Washington. In 1946, a resolution was sent to the Highway Commission urging a bridge be erected at White's Ferry to Maryland. We're still riding the ferry. In 1946, General Anthony McAuliffe spoke to the club on the atom bomb. if many of you recall, that same general was, when surrounded at Bastogne, replied to the Germans when they asked for surrender, "Nuts, go to hell." What was extraordinary about reading this is the type of world-class speakers that the Leesburg Rotary Club had come talk to them. In March of 1947, General George Marshall was elected to membership. In 1955, General Marshall was the speaker, and he barred the press from the room and really let his hair down on speaking on the China situation. Just imagine the press being banned from a room today. Nobody can tell the truth anymore. January of 1956, the club was saddened by the death of George Hughes. He had at this time attended 1,428 consecutive meetings. George Hughes was also the owner of Belmont Plantation Field. June of 1957, General Marshall again let his hair down with a talk on the Marshall Plan, which was on his 10th anniversary. October 59, the death of George Marshall was announced at the club. He had died on October 16. April of 1963, Major General Olmsted talked on banking as his organization had just bought the People's National Bank. Many of you remember it as the Financial General Corporation. Now it's Lightfoot Restaurant. July the 1st, 1965, past President Frank Patton penned the incoming President Stanley Calkins as the incoming President. On June the 30th, Stanley Calkins, the past President, presented a pen to T. Benton Smith. Let me tell you, Leesburg Rotary has a wonderful tradition. And these were not all in the past, because I remember, as Beckham and so forth will remember, Rotarians had perfect attendance of, and I don't know the exact number of, I'm guessing, but John Dietrich, Frank Myers, George Atwell had over 35 years. I will ask George if that's correct, but George, we need to get finished before midnight. but that is sensational. Stanley Calkins, John Marsh, Carl Emswiller had perfect attendance for well over 25 years. Also Ben Lawrence, Perry Winston, and Johnny Wright. John Mapp also had an unbelievable run. I wasn't very good. I had perfect attendance the year I was president. Because I had committed to this club for that year, and I stuck to my guns. And I had 1 year in a row. 288 consecutive 100% meetings. A world's record in this little club, and will never be broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And I will say that we're in the same ballpark. I had 100% attendance the year I was president. That was it. But you're right. I think Frank Myers had 42 years perfect attendance in the club. Joe, thank you for those words and telling us about Rotary and all the important aspects of Rotary and how Rotary has affected lives over the years. Now I'm going to have a very special person talk about polio fundraising efforts spearheaded by her husband Carl during Dean Worcester's year as president. Jewel, if you'll come up and talk about that fundraising effort.
tell you all that, adding on to Joe's comments, it was a wonderful privilege to walk down Michigan Avenue. What did I do?
I think you hit the,
I won't touch it, I promise. Walking down Michigan Avenue in Chicago with our banner that said 288 consecutive meetings for the 100th anniversary of Rotary. That was really, really special. And all of us that were there will remember it. And I tried to get everybody to go on the train like they had done before, but I didn't have much success with that. So now, on to polio. It's you, Jewel.
Like TSA.
What should I do? I'm not touching anything.
It's all yours.
This is not part of my 3 minutes.
No, you're not doing
You
that.
mean hold it? You mean hold it? Okay. What? Okay, I want to thank the committee for asking me to do this particular story. Many others that are here tonight could have told it, probably told it better. So I feel honored to share with you the story of this significant event in our club. Rotary International sent out a decree that we were going to work with the World Health Association, UNICEF, CDC, and that we were going to eradicate polio in the world. And to do that, in 1988, they sent out this notice that each club would be responsible for raising a certain amount of money. You could pledge and you could raise that money over a 5-year period. Dean Wooster was president, and he asked Carl M. Swiler to chair this event. According to Joe Kelly, because I don't remember, Carl chose Joe Kelly, Jack Wallace, George Atwell, and maybe O.B. Knight. The committee took on the form of its chair, low-key and quietly meeting with members individually, and the members responded. There was a 5-year window to meet your pledge, and everyone who pledged met their pledge. How amazing is that? That just never happens. You've heard this part of the story many times. The small club of not quite 50 members raised, according to Dean Wooster, $92,000. Now, I've heard 87,000, I've heard 100,000. Take your pick. But in today's numbers, about $500,000 was raised. This is truly phenomenal. RI had asked us to raise $20,000. There were so many side benefits to this achievement. The bonding of the club and the pride they felt in what they had achieved. Taking ownership of helping to eradicate polio. Through the efforts of this polio campaign, our money was transferred to points, and we were able to name all our members who were not Paul Harris Fellows a Paul Harris Fellow. And so for a short period of time, we achieved a goal that most clubs will never reach. Carl spoke that night that this happened, and he talked about how proud he was to be a Rotarian and how proud he was to be a Paul Harris Fellow. And this all started with our club making a decision to support this effort, thanks to Dean and to the committee for presenting in such a way as to make this club want to support this effort. George Atwell has been on multiple trips to give the vaccine, and I like to think that his commitment toward polio started in 1988 with this effort by his club at the time. Today, we have not eradicated polio, but this is what we have done. Today, $900 billion has been contributed by 33,000 clubs in more than 200 countries. Rotary has given over 2 billion vaccines to children. Last year, there were just 700 cases of polio. But as long as there's one child that gets polio, no child is safe. We can take great pride in this club in the manner in which we stepped up and did much more than our share. But that's why this club is so special. We always step up, and we always do more, and we will continue to do the same in future, whatever the crisis may be. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Where, was that East Market Street or West Market Street with the palm trees in the background?
Yes, absolutely.